Part two, what the hell is astrology and how do we use it? How can we channel it for mental health? How can it be useful for us? So we're back here with Carrie. Check her out on Instagram at mother underscore star. That's 2 underscores. And she's here to do a chart reading on me. So what is a chart reading? Like, what are we doing?
Okay, so in our first interview, we talked about how I'm looking at a blueprint of the moment that you were born. So
Right.
when we are looking at the chart, it's basically having a dialogue about maybe having an intention of an area of life that you want to go into, some guidance around an area. Um, Specifically, could be mental health, right? Like what's
Mm-hmm.
causing my anxiety? What kind of tools can I use for my depression? And just looking at all your planetary placements and how they interact helps me understand your psyche and helps me show you, like mirror back to you. Do you know this part of you? This is how these things are interacting, and um, go from there as far as then applying an element that you could work with or different tools that then can be used.
Right. So you're going to interpret the stars and the planets and everything, and you're going to give it to me in a digestible way that I can use.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
the art of being an astrologer is that we speak English.
Right.
I'm looking at an astrology chart.
Right. Okay. So if you're interested in getting an astrology chart reading for your usefulness, mother 2 underscore star on Instagram, shoot her a message. Right. That's the way to reach you.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it.
Okay.
What do I do?
So,
What do I do with
is
my
there a topic
hands? I don't.
is there a topic that you want to discuss today as far as like relationship or
Um.
career or anything that feels sticky or
Uh
perfect for you?
I'd like to start in like mental health. That's what we're here for. How about something about anxiety? I've been having some different anxieties. It's not overwhelming. It's not overtaking me, but it's definitely there.
Okay,
I don't know what to do with that information.
great. Okay. So the first thing I always look at are where your sun, moon, and rising are. Those are the three main components of your chart. So you know that you're a sun in Pisces, right? That's the horoscope
That's your
that everyone has.
birthday. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm. And then your moon, specifically you, Jim, is in Taurus, and your Cancer rising. Okay.
Okay.
So to give you some English to that is
Yeah.
that you have double water and earth. All of those three really get along. The thing that stands out to me the most about your chart is how much water is in your chart.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
thirsty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm real thirsty, guys. If you don't understand the water and the 4 elements, go check out the first.
Yeah.
Go check out the first interview. We cover that big time, but we're not going to cover it here because we already
Right.
did that.
So
A lot of
with all
water.
this water, if we break it down to each one, your sun is the way that you identify yourself, the way that people see you, your ego, your outer appearance. So that
Okay.
being in Pisces, it's the part of you that is very compassionate, has this ability to hold so much space to the point that you almost merge with others, right? It's like you shapeshift. This could be, people would call like a very highly sensitive being. It's the empath in you, right? And it's the part of you that just you give and you love without even really thinking about it. And that's how people know you, is like you make people feel pretty comfortable. You allow people to talk through things and just hold space without a lot of effort or even knowing of it, right? So that's amplified or supported by your Cancer rising, which is also a water sign, giving you this ability to nurture people, this ability to fix people. It's like adding into that ability to do nonverbal as far as you feel things, you're intuitive in what people need and what people want. And it's not necessarily a verbal dance. Like you can read what's not being said
Mm-hmm.
from people, right?
Okay.
And
It's my
so,
job. So that's
yep,
sweet.
right.
It's the job. Yep.
Like healing work, holding space, facilitating healing,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. Then your moon in Taurus is more grounded, is a part of you that likes to go a little bit slower and keep things pretty simple. The part of you that likes routine. And your moon is more of your emotional body, right? So it's like, what are your emotional needs? How do I feel safe and secure? So this is the part of you that really wants financial security as well, wants like this grounding, this feeling of like, what is my worth? And on the high side, it's knowing that your worth is based on just you being enough and like having worthiness within and not looking for like material things, right? So your
I'm
face.
just trying to digest it because that seems a little contradictory. I guess
Hmm.
it's like I
Right.
want financial security, but that my worth. Would it help me understand this? This is like my kind of my natural state is
Yeah.
that I
So the
feel a desire towards I want financial security, yet what is the opposing? Because it seems like the other part is contradictory.
mhm. So to talk about your sun, moon, and rising are like the three biggest parts of you, and they don't always get along or like feel like they can have contradictory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the art is to speak about that. Like, how does that show up for you as far as needing that financial stability, or do you go with the flow a lot more? How does how do you feel like what is your emotional stability? What do you need to feel really grounded? Right. And like in your chart, your earth really isn't very supported. So is that a part of you that you know pretty well? Do you do the finances and the grounded things easily, or do you get more lost in the water?
Mm.
So how would you answer that question?
I would say I'm consistently inconsistent with it. Like it's almost like playing catch up all the time.
Mhm,
Like where
mhm,
I'll be, if I'm focused on it, it takes a lot of intention for me to stay focused and to restrict spending, especially on like having a fun time or especially with on other people.
mhm,
But then
mhm.
when it gets to be an issue, that's when it's like, like focus. Okay, got to reel this back because I feel super anxious that money might be wearing out or I'm not making progress towards other goals. It's a
Yeah,
big conflict.
yeah.
It's,
Another signature piece of your chart is that you're a comedian. You love to do things big and indulge, right? And there's a part of you that's just like, fuck it, like this is all a big game, and this is really like, what are we doing here,
mm-hmm,
right? Of like, I just want to have fun. I like to crack a joke. It's not that serious, right? So those parts of you are really contradictory. Of you spend all the money or you do something frivolous, and then but your emotional security really wants that or desires to have that financial backing or that groundedness of like, this is my home, this is where I really root down,
mm-hmm,
right? So you feel that in your psyche a lot where it's like
definitely.
a push pull.
Yeah, it's a definitely a strange want for spontaneity and discomfort, and like stepping out of the comfort zone and then having a safe place at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
W-
And so which one usually wins for you? Is it
It's kind of like neither. It's kind of it's hard to say, man. It really depends on the phase and how freaked out I get by one or the other. Because I get really freaked out if things feel too comfortable. I get really uncomfortable if things feel very safe, and then I get really anxious if they're very ungrounded or very unsafe. So it's
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I don't know. Probably the more impulsive part
Mm-hmm.
overall.
Yeah. So this the part that I'm speaking of is this you do have an undercurrent of fire in your chart. That's like that impulsivity that you're talking about, or that that part of you that really doesn't like to do. There's this dichotomy again of you have all this healing energy and this wanting to go deep and wanting to get into like um to do the flow and to be more about like feelings and the harder stuff, but then the fire is like, but I really just want to have fun and like impulse and be able to be spontaneous,
Mm.
right? So there's some good contradictory in your chart of like um how do I do all my emotional work, but then I kind of want to just have fun and be superficial or be the life of the party, right? I think about like you do very serious healing work, and then I know you and that persona of like doing music and really like being up there and having a really good time and doing
Mm-hmm.
something really different, right? There's like these two parts of you.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah.
And another big thing that really stands out about your chart is karma. You can call it karma, you can call it like wounding, you could call it you hold a lot of pain for your family, like your family of origin. There's some kind of like patterning or wounding, right? Is that's really deep within your family of origin that you're carrying for them within your lineage. So it's like you're here to break through with your healing work in doing that for the whole family. Something about like it's really connected to your moon, that Taurus energy of you getting stuck, or you feeling like you're not worthy, or you wanting to ground but like not taking the time and the energy and the effort to ground.
Hmm.
So it's like this, like, tell me a little bit about how you grew up. Did you have a stable home? Were you moving a lot? What was comfortable or modeled for you?
We lost faith. So I have three older brothers. We lost a lot of like emotional trust in our parents pretty early. They
Mm-hmm.
they split they split pretty early, and man, they were just not super reliable in a lot of ways. Reliable in certain ways, like definitely provided, definitely, mom was pretty nurturing in certain ways, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely not like she tells me all the time that when I was like 4 years old, she would be crying and I would come over to her and try to console her. I don't remember this stuff at all, but definitely didn't feel like we could share openly or have like successful conversations in a lot of ways. I think our family's very kind of disconnected from the rest of the world. Has trouble socially, has trouble emotionally connecting and having faith. Very judgmental, very scared, fear based. But
Okay.
I, I took a lot of work, but kind of pivoted away from that
Mm-hmm.
somehow, and I'm kind of the outsider in that
Yeah,
way. In a lot of
exactly.
ways, yeah.
That speaks to it, is that you're holding a lot of that pain, and the way that you said, like, you're like the rock of your family, right? You have that, like, to have your moon in an earth sign like that is that you're very steady. You're very much like, in crisis, able to stand still or like keep
Hmm.
it together,
Yeah.
right? So you as a child were consoling your mother. Like, that's a little fucked up, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a
that
backwards
no
dynamic.
one
Yeah.
was holding space for you. And so you identified as like, oh, like, for it to find love or be acknowledged is like to hold all this space, right? In comes all that water of like, I nurture others, I take care of others, I merge with them, and that's how I like, I'm part of the family.
Hmm.
And so you're holding a lot of that karma in your family, which you then start to feel that you said, like, I'm the one that's broken out of it, or I'm like the
Hmm.
almost that black sheep energy, right? Of like, I don't fit in quite in
Mm-hmm.
this family, but it's like always under the surface, right? There's always like this wounding or this unconscious, of how you grew up is very, very potent in leading, like, if you're not doing the shadow work, if you're not looking at the patterning that comes up, because it's so pertinent in your chart, it's really running the show behind the scenes.
So when you say doing the shadow work, you mean like being aware of what's going on kind of in the subconscious?
Right, doing a lot of work of like, yeah, like, inner child work, or doing things that are like very, um getting into those subconscious thoughts, or like those things that happen when you were young,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that you weren't space wasn't held for you when you were a kid, you were holding space for others,
Hmm.
right? So that's like your default setting of, um how you show up in a relationship. So if
Which
you're
is
not doing the shadow work of like, I am enough to hold space, I am enough to be just as important as the other person, like, I'm worthy of, um partnership, that where I'm an equal rather than I'm the one holding space, and that's how I'm loved and acknowledged. Does that
mm-hmm.
make sense? Like, when you were in that parent child dynamic, you were the one, always you held the space.
Right.
So it's like that
Ho-
perpetuates into your relationships.
Holding space meaning allowing like being the stability or listening or
Hmm. Hmm.
being the okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Still working through it, man.
Yeah.
As far as relationships, yeah, it's definitely significant.
Right. So to bring it into the aspect of, anxiety, or, to really, again, identify those two parts of you of like, there's such a deepness to this chart. There's such a internal, healing of doing this work around your family of origin, and, really doing that deep, dark healing work, like looking at
Mm-hmm.
all those shadows, looking at all of those things that need to be, need light to be shown on them that we might rather like avoid or be distracted from.
Mm-hmm.
There is this such a polarity in your chart of you do want to say fuck it and have fun and like avoid the heavier part of life, but yet it's so part of your karma, part of your chart to do that like very deep intense work,
Mm.
right? So it's like to put in the anxiety piece of when those things come up, when those wounds are touched, right? Like a thorn is touched. Are you leaning in to do the work, or are you saying, fuck it, I'm out because I want to have fun?
Mm. Uh,
Because,
are you asking me?
yeah,
It's
I
like
would love to hear.
it's like 50-50. It goes through phases. Yeah. It does. It goes through phases. Sometimes like it's exhausting to just be in the
Yeah,
emotion. That happens a lot in relationships, especially the
yeah,
last one I was in was just feelings and feelings and feelings and like emotions and diving. It's like this is like overwhelming. Like you need
right,
to just to also have an external experience as well.
right. And on the high side, like that's such a gift that you have, that have the you have such an ability to make light of things, to bring humor into the situation, to lighten up the load, right? Of like, hey, this isn't so serious. We don't have to stay in this depth all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the low side is the avoidance of it or just
Mm.
like not looking at it. Right. And with this much water in your chart, it can one lead to anxiety and depression, also addictions, because it's that avoidance but wanting that intimacy, but the intimacy has to be bred through leaning in when those things are super uncomfortable and like leaning into the depths, right?
Mm.
But I think a big component for you too of your moon being in Taurus, it goes back to that like knowing you're enough, having that worthiness of um taking up space. And again, I mean that in like in a dynamic that you're voicing your boundaries, that you're having just as much say and participation or respect, like honored, you're honored just as much in the partnership or relationship. And this isn't just like romantic partners, it's like
Yeah.
friendships, like
Mm.
clients, it's like anyone that you're coming in contact with. It's not just about them, it's also about you,
Right.
that you're really able to be nurtured and held, and you're not just only doing the nurturing.
Yeah.
So how do you do with boundaries? How do you do with like voicing your needs or um, being able
Uh.
to tell when those are being violated?
Yeah, I think I struggle with certain ones. Definitely around money. Money's one, especially in like romantic relations. I have weird beliefs about money. Boundaries. Yeah, and it depends. It's kind of inconsistent. I feel like when I think about it, it wavers a little bit. I go through phases where it's easy, and I'm like not fierce, but just really clear and concise about it, and that tends to be good for me. And then I go through periods where I feel like I'm reaching and trying to please more, and feel guilty about anything as simple as like ending a phone call to telling a girlfriend I need just want to be alone for a night or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that speaks to having that much water, is that you I love that you use that word guilt. That's such a Cancer word of like, I have to hold space. I can't like I need to make sure I'm showing up for you. But you lose yourself in all of that, right? And then you get depleted. So like alone time is really important. Like that's a huge boundary for water, right? It's like I need to be in my own energy. I need to take care of me because I can't take care of anyone else until I take care of me.
Hmm.
Like that's a huge boundary. And then it's setting the boundaries that are small along the way, right? So that you're not getting to a place of overload, because as with so much water, you take on so much you don't really realize it, right? Because it's not really verbalizing like you're verbally taking it on. It's like this energetic sponge.
Hmm.
You're holding on to other people's energy.
What is remind me what water? Why does that mean? Water.
Water. So
Like
it's
what are
the
the
element
characteristics
of
of water?
right. It's the part of you that's so, like I said at the beginning, of the healer in you, the intuitive part, like your ability to really read what's not being said and be able to. It's yeah, it's your intuitive nature. It's the part of you that just hold space. Like, it's you think about water, it doesn't have containment,
Hmm.
right? Unless you put it in a container, it just goes everywhere.
Yeah,
So you're able to you merge into others. You
I
take on
see.
a lot of things. So without boundaries, right? Without those edges or containment, you're just always spread out so thin, which leads to that depletion or leads to like not being able to define yourself within your work or within a relationship. Like it's like consuming.
Got you. Got you. So I'm not a person. Like
It's
I'm
like,
not a
well, where's
person. I'm a
Jim, right?
reaction.
Right. It's like, where did Jim go? And then it's if you don't have those, if you're not taking care of you, you get to this like low battery where you don't even realize you got there
Hmm.
because you're holding on to so many people, so much stuff that's other people's.
It's interesting. It's definitely
But
true.
yeah, so all to say that fire is so important in being the one to set the boundaries and being the one to define those edges so that you're not getting into overload of the water where you're like a dirty sponge that hasn't been wrung out, right? Like you're just so full of other people's energy, which causes the anxiety or causes the depletion or causes that need to like maybe explode at sometimes because there's no boundaries within
Hmm.
place. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what like how that applies to specific situations. Yeah. Where am I at? Where's my earth? Where's my air, man?
Yeah, so earth for you is, again, it's very important for you emotionally to feel stable, but I don't think it's an element you're very comfortable with.
Earth is stability as far as like what would that look like?
Hmm. It's like being routine, being financially stable,
Mm.
having a lot of rituals or um, activities, like things that really keep you grounded,
Hmm.
right? Like you always drink tea in the morning, or you always, whatever rituals you have that keep you very steady.
So why would I be so sucky at that? Because that sounds like consistency. Sounds like yeah,
Yeah.
consistency, routine, ritual.
Uh-huh.
Why
Yeah.
do I suck at that so bad? Because I do.
Your moon is in Earth, but it's really the only significant planet you have in Earth. So it's not something that's supported very much in your chart. So that's an element that really needs cultivating. And when you're looking at like the fact that you're all pretty much fire and water, you're like kind of high and low, you're kind of all over the place, like you're either spontaneous or you're just like free flowing, right? So
Hmm.
that's that you need Earth to, you have to cultivate that structure or else that flow will just kind of get lost.
And what about air? Do I have any air?
You don't have a lot of air either. Like
What is that?
honestly,
What's
no one.
air? God darn it! I can't
The air,
breathe. I'm drowning.
yeah, the air that you do have is the part of you that likes to be a little bit rebellious, the part of you that likes to be um, innovative or like start create your own ideas, like this
Hmm.
creative energy that you have. Um,
What is the essence of air though? Like
Air
what is?
air is all about connecting and communicating. So being able to um, state your boundaries or being able to talk about new ideas and connect with people in community, right? And
Okay.
like again, the little bit of air you do have, it does include community, like bringing people together based on their what really brings them, what's really unique about them, or really what they who they are authentically, right? So hence like you bring people together about anxiety because it's something you care about. It's something where you can like bring people in based on their authentic experiences, right? And that's like how you connect people.
Hmm.
But air, as far as like being able to really speak to your truth, I think is hard in that you don't have your air, again, is not, it's not a strong element for you. And I think so much of your chart and everything we've been discussing comes back to um how do you structure a lot of this water and then like speak to it, or like how do you give edges or boundaries to a lot of your water so that you're not just like drowning in it, and then you have to like use your fire to pull the ripcord and like either blow it up or have to be spontaneous or be really fiery in the moment.
So if we to make it practical, the is it like communicating or being creative with the emotional side or the intuitive side, or what? Like, help me bridge the gap. How do I cultivate air?
Mm. I think that the biggest thing for you first would be cultivating fire, in that learning what your boundaries are, and learning about like when you need to say no to show up for someone, when you need to state like this is when I need alone time, like starting to understand what your needs are outside of
Hmm.
other people's needs.
Yeah, I think I'm getting better. Definitely getting better at that. That
Hmm.
seems like it's on the rise. And then what? Then what do I do?
So it's like cultivating that fire, and even a lot of times, like I don't know how your workout routine is, or something that you do to move your physical body really
Hmm.
helps generate fire and
Yeah.
really helps you, get a lot of water off of you, like other people's energy.
Hmm.
And that's something important for you and anyone
Definitely.
with a lot of water in their chart, because it's helps with that stagnancy, it helps with that anxiety building, it helps with um, helping you figure out, like, again, who am I in all of this, because I feel lost in
Hmm.
all this water, right?
Yeah.
So first, really getting your fire under control, and then learning how to use your voice to speak it, to say, like, to really communicate it, to really speak to all of the emotions. And I guess that would be one thing of like, do you speak to your own emotions well? Are you able to really speak to um like, I'm feeling this, or do you kind of make it more humorous? Do you keep it superficial? Like, what's that
I think I do
shift?
decent. I think I do. Yeah, I think I do well. I think one of the reasons I do the work I do is because it grounds me in that.
Hmm.
It helps reinforce that a lot.
Hmm.
I think I do pretty well. I think I have trouble telling what emotion. I feel very mixed a lot of the time. Like, I rarely feel super integrated in a feeling or an action.
Hmm.
And that's tough sometimes. So I'm able to identify, like, I feel this way and I feel kind of this way, and I'm cool with it, but I'm also mad and I'm also this. That's how a lot of my conversations go about stuff. It's like, well, that's a good move, but it's also stupid, but it's also frustrating and like this. And then it takes me a little bit of processing to be like, okay, this seems like the thing to do. Definitely.
So what helps you find that clarity when you're feeling those mix of emotions, or
Usually talking it out,
yeah.
talking out, processing through it. Therapy is great for me. And then having friends that I can ramble a little bit to sort it
Mhm.
out.
Yeah. When you are sorting it out or you're speaking about it, do you feel that you really get into the depths of it, that you really speak to like the unspeakable, or do you keep it, because there's a part of you that maybe could be a little bit secretive or feel like you can't really go all the way?
Sometimes yeah, I think the majority of the time I don't probably go as far
Hmm.
as, yeah, especially in like primary relationships. It feels strange to like really close friends or girlfriends or
Hmm.
family members. A lot of it feels sometimes it feels like I'm taking up space, and it feels like I'm like, okay, this is getting boring or old, or
Yeah.
they're getting self conscious, or they're getting frustrated or whatever.
Mhm. So right there is naming what I was saying about you being able to take up as much space in a relationship, and that you allow people to go into that depth, right? Like, either I know you as a friend, as a professional, that you allow people to get into those unspeakable places. But where are you allowing yourself to do the same?
It gets to a point a lot of times where I'll get resentful, especially with romantic partners, and
Mhm.
then it turns into a lot of fire. Like,
Right?
yeah, and it turns into
Because
a
you
lot of
give
fire.
and give and give, and then there's no space for you. Like you said so eloquently of like, I'm drowning, right? I'm drowning in your shit. And then it's like you build this resentment of like, well, what about my stuff?
Right.
Hmm.
I don't
I
want to
think,
be drowning in shit. Sounds
yeah.
gross and it sounds hard to breathe. Yeah.
So I think the key for you is continuing to allow yourself to lean in when you're like, this feels like I'm going to be taking up too much space. This
Mm-hmm.
feels like I'm wasting their time. This feels like whatever story you're telling yourself of that you're not enough, or that you aren't worthy of having that same dynamic held for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that it feels like that resentment gets built, and like I do so much for you. I'm here. I'm like, I will sit here with you for hours, but like, what about me? I'm not speaking to the fact that I don't want to sit there, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
not speaking to the fact that like the deepest, like whatever your deepest unspeakable truth is, isn't being said,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's like this disconnect of allowing yourself to get into your deepest parts.
Hmm. It's interesting. Yeah. As far as like, you talked a lot about focusing on the shadow and the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
What are some practices you'd recommend for that? Is that more in the moment, or is that more like regressive therapies, or is it just a mix of everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that depends on the person, of course, like what works for you. Like you said, for you, I think it takes therapy one-on-one is probably really good for you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
because you don't feel like you have to hold the space, like you're literally paying someone
Yeah.
to hold space for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's such your default to do it for someone else.
Yeah.
And I can attest to that again as your friend of like, very often it's like shifting onto like, well, what's up with you, right? Like how do you need space held, because that's such a default mode for you, or such an ease. But in that extension, are you checking in with yourself of like, do I actually want to show up right now for them?
Mm.
Do I really give a fuck how they're doing, or do I not right now because I'm depleted, or I need to do something for me?
It's interesting. Well.
So getting into that work of really, as simple as a great exercise to start with is just starting your awareness of, when are you saying yes when you want to say no? Because when you want to say no, like
Mm-hmm.
your gut tells you, or there's like this like pause, but you say yes anyway, or you linger around, but you don't want to. So just starting to like check in with yourself of like, when should I have set a boundary? And reframing that, like you setting those boundaries is you doing, like, that's for the highest good of everyone, because
Mm-hmm.
you cannot show up for someone at your best without nourishing yourself, without knowing what you need,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
100%.
I imagine a lot of that anxiety comes from like getting lost in all that water and holding all that like energy that's not yours, and feeling like it's agitating, it's heavy, it's a lot to, like you said, like you it's hard for you to even know like, what am I feeling, because it probably isn't yours a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
because you're holding so much.
Mm. It's wild. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about money. How do I get more?
You did it right there.
What?
We were going deep and you were like, nope, I
No,
don't.
it's not, my eyes got really hot. Shit. Well, okay. I'm thinking about it. It's like, well, I got out of a relationship. I'm in a new relationship, and I'm really focused on making sure that I have room to process, and reinforcing that a lot with my new partner, like a lot. And that's one of my favorite things about her, is that she's very giving with the space, like the conversational space, and allowing me she listens.
Mm.
Maybe it's because she doesn't speak English that great, but no, that's a joke. I'm just kidding. No, but she's a good, yeah, totally.
That's a great awareness. Yeah.
But it's due to screwing up past relationships, like that pattern of like growing resentment over time,
Yeah.
not necessarily being able to put my finger on it, but then realizing like all I want is just to be listened to. Like that's all I want. It's just, I'm happy to listen and happy to give, but I just want to be able to have the space to process myself, without over advisement or without somebody trying to fix it, or, with just
Just
having the space. Yeah. That's like
yeah,
safety and security to me. It's trust in a lot of ways to me.
totally.
And we didn't have that. Our parents weren't able to do that at all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So again, that goes back to that first family of origin that you had, and how much of that you is running your show, right?
Yeah.
Under the surface. And good on you that you've gotten into the healing world, and that you're in like this. It's part of your lesson, or your purpose here in this lifetime is like to really do that deep work, really get into those wounds, and um to transform them into your greatest wisdom. And that's the healer, right? Is that you do your own work, and then you're able to bring it to your clients.
Mm.
And to go back to the piece about your new girlfriend, is it uncomfortable for you when she's holding that for you, or how's it like? Is it you're having to rewire how that feels to receive that much space and that much
You know,
honoring?
it's weird because I think for me, I don't think it's necessarily weird. I think for me, I catch myself sensationalizing or turning into an entertainer in the middle of like a conversation where I'm talking about something serious, and I can catch myself getting off of the wavelength and becoming more and more self-conscious or aware of like her presence, or being like, is she okay? Like, is this boring? Am I triggering her? Am I, yeah, big time. It just happened last night.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then I'll kind of pivot into comedy, or pivot into sensationalizing things, or start putting out a little bit of a show. I'm so aware of it now that I feel like it's like a tug of war of just be calm, be grounded. And sometimes then I feel like I lose kind of my authenticity, or it feels like I'm compromised in a way. And then I just feel very internally dissonant and kind of disconnected, unintegrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird.
You said a lot.
Sure
So I'm
did.
trying to pick out.
Sure.
I love what you said though about you're so self-aware, and that you like now can catch yourself in those moments, right? And I think the permission for you, or the knowing that like really leaning in is where that intimacy and that safety that you really crave is.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, or what's been normalized for you, like the default for you is that that safety should come from holding a lot of space for them, or checking in with them, or like being like really hyper vigilant of how they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like their caretaker. So it's like reframing, and that like that intimacy and that trust and that love that I really want, like deeply desire, is when I lean in, when I go into those deep, like into that really authentic part of me that feels really uncomfortable.
Mm.
So it's like that, even just in those moments, like knowing that this is, I'm feeling that thing. I feel myself wanting to like pull out and be funny, or do something to like get out of this. Can I lean in a little farther? Can I even say to her like, I'm uncomfortable? Like this is, I can feel myself doing that thing,
Mm-hmm.
and see how that like breeds more intimacy, breeds more of that like connectedness, rather than like that, ooh, I'm going to turn away from it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It hits a lot of parts from some past relationships too. Just instantly rings some bells.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you're a loyal guy too. Like you have such a loyalty in you, and like loyal to the people you're caretaking, I imagine. Like you stay in the relationship, or you stay with the thing, even though you're feeling like, well, I'm not really feeling safe, or I'm not feeling like there's this part of you that and I imagine that's where the resentment comes from, or the addiction, or the anxiety, however it manifests, because like there's no room for you in that. Like you've disappeared into the other person.
Mm-hmm. So, what do I do with that? No, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I think that so much of it is continuing to learn about your boundaries. And I think boundaries is such a buzzword these
Yeah, it
days,
is
right?
definitely
Like
a
you need
buzzword.
boundaries and you need, but like boundaries in the way of honoring what your needs are, and no, and going back to that worthiness piece of your needs and wants and everything are just as equally important as anyone else's.
Yeah, I think part of when you talk about water, it's hard not to. It's kind of hard to tell
Hmm.
what I am in a lot of ways. Like, what are my belief systems? What are my values and opinions? Some of them are very clear. Some of them feel contrived. Some of them just feel not clear at all. And so I think it's easier for me, especially in like a romantic relationship, just to adopt, other ways of being or other values. Or
Yeah.
we were just talking about this. I was just talking about this after the live stream with Ennis, which was, we were like, we we merge a lot. Like
Hmm.
we kind of shape shift a bit to fit, to connect with people, or to fit, not in a completely compromising way, but
Right.
just in like an adaptability way.
Right. Well, it's not compromising until it is, right? It's
Right.
like not until it's like, oh shit, where did I go?
Mm.
So I think the catch is like the more that you can cultivate a sense of self outside of relationship, the less you're going to get lost in it,
Mm.
right? The more that you can separate yourself, and maybe that means physically, right? That like you have to have alone time. You have to be able to explore like, what do I believe about this? Or have that space enough to know like, this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
These are my edges. This is my container where I hold water. And then when you go into that, you have kind of a barrier. You have an ability to define yourself. So yeah, how to make that practical is like, how much time do you spend alone? How much time are
A
you,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you do with your alone time?
Eat. Yeah, sometimes exercise. It just depends. It kind of depends on the day. There's
Yeah.
a lot of chilling or reading, or quite a. It depends on the, like, what else is going on. But sometimes when I'm in a tight spot, it's a lot of just numbing out.
Mhm.
Being with people is super grounding for me. It's super, like, feels more secure.
Uh-huh.
Like, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I would challenge though that it's not that it would be, it feels familiar, it feels like it's
It
grounding
feels
because
comfortable. Yeah, it
that's
feels
right.
safe.
So the more that you cultivate like, I'm comfortable and I trust myself, right? And you even named that when you're alone, there's a lot of numbing that happens, there's a lot of distracting.
Hmm.
So if you can start doing like journaling, I don't know if you do any kind of journaling practice, is such a tool of um figuring out what is happening in your thought
Totally.
patterns, right?
Yeah.
And really understanding what is happening that's making you numb. So
Hmm.
like, and this goes back to your lack of earth too, of like making sure that it's a routine, that you're doing it, you're showing up to it consistently, right? So that when you are alone, you have some kind of grounded um, routine to keep you accountable.
Yeah. It's so funny because journaling, it's scary. When I
Yeah.
do it for a while, I get really anxious and uncomfortable when I'm
Hmm.
consistent with it. And I don't know if that's that I'm just, there's kind of some there's some like guilt or shame around, like I'm nervous, I'm anxious, I'm going to stop doing it and then beat myself up about it. But also just the consistency. I remember the feeling of when times I've been journaling consistently and being like, it feels freaky. And maybe it's just because I'm opening up that subconscious to deal with all the whatever's going on.
Yeah, I would, it sounds like it's starting to touch those things, those really key points of the anxiety or of the always comes like, your chart continues to come back to like those family of origin wounds that are under there that are really scary,
Yeah.
right? That feel really like, I can't really tell anyone about this.
Hmm.
But the more that you start to trust yourself to open into those things, the more that you're getting in, like, you can even name that that feels uncomfortable. It's another space for you to lean into.
Mm.
And then when you need that support, like whatever you uncover, take it to your therapist and be like, "Oh, I was journaling and this thing came up. I need someone to help me through this." Right? Like you don't have to do it alone or like
Mm-hmm.
sit in the shame of it, but to even let yourself go there, to let yourself in those moments alone, hold yourself accountable to like, I need to do my work. I need to know me. I need to trust me and show up for me first
Mm.
because I have such a tendency in default mode to merge into others.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. It all makes a lot of sense. This
Right?
is all from the time I was born.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot. So like, all right.
Yeah. And I feel like I talked a lot. Like,
No, it's good.
we,
That's yeah. I
we
mean,
didn't start with a topic of like, I want to talk about relationship. I want to, like, which I do like to start with more of an intentional path.
yeah,
So
yeah. So it's not
both
just
both
open
of
ended.
them,
Yeah. When you
but there's, go ahead.
when you walk through the process of this with people, so you start with a kind of specific intention, and you said in the last interview too that you're getting into more long term coaching. Is it
Mm-hmm.
because you like this chart? You kind of take the information from the chart, and then it's your job to kind of funnel it to them, and then kind of support them through
Yeah.
cultivating balance for themselves. And so I could see how that would get so complicated because
Right.
it's like the chart is your foundation to know their tendencies and then to know what will help them find more balance. And like for me, so being so much water, having the boundaries, setting the fire as the boundaries in the container,
Mm-hmm.
and then cultivating more earth and cultivating more air.
Yeah.
But in each different kind of area, it's a little different what that would mean.
Well, essentially anything in the chart can be applied to whatever is relevant in your life. Like it could be
Sure.
however you're expressing these energies could be
Like a money
applied to
thing.
right to your money,
Yeah.
to your, whatever your relationships, to your career, like so knowing what the client's intention of what they want to address is
Yeah.
really helpful. And then yeah, it's starting with okay, how can we balance your elements? Then how can like there's so many different avenues that you can get into and the chart just continues to deepen. Like there's so many layers to it
Mm-hmm.
that there will be constantly something to refine or implement because there's such an in-depth process of getting to know yourself.
Do you get into like the solar alignment in the present too, as far as how it pertains to people's charts and all that? So like, I have this foundation, and then this shit is all going on. This retrograde with the who and the hey and the Mercury and the Sun and the Venus, and you have
Yeah.
to apply all that to. You use that.
Yes, you definitely can. And like even just simplified for you is that you are coming into a good earth cycle. So just simply put, it's like it's a good 2 years for you to start implementing more structure in your life, to really implement like these are
Discipline,
the routines and the things that
balance,
me feel grounded. Discipline.
routine. Yeah, that's so funny because we just scheduled our weekly schedule. We're like, we need structure. We
Yeah.
need discipline. I just joined a martial arts gym like 2 days ago. I was like, I need structure and
Great.
discipline.
Exactly. So these
Shit.
next 2 years are really focused on that. And I'd love to see how that helps you feel more emotionally secure, right? Because we go back to that moon in Taurus, like you want that grounding, you want that stability, but that stability has to be within you. That trust has to be within you, not on your external factors.
And the trust in me is a trust and consistency. It's an emotional trust. What the trust that what does that mean? The trust in me.
I think that could mean a lot of things, but like just trust that you show up for yourself, trust that you follow through, trust that you have your own back, trust that like all the things that
Mm-hmm.
you normally that you want to be able to trust someone else for. Can you first trust yourself? Can you first have that wholeness and that like worthiness before a partner comes in, before a job comes in,
Mm.
and be like that solid in you that's how you attract everything to you.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it's really, again, like to reiterate, what I would leave you as a client is like you're in this cycle of earth. So it's really about what you've already stated. You need structure in your life. You need to really start implementing some discipline and routine that keep you grounded, and not just grounded in others, right? You named like I
Mm.
feel most grounded when I'm with other people, but grounded in you. And that goes hand in hand with cultivating your fire and knowing your edges and your boundaries and where you exist even when others aren't around, and so that you can start stating those like, no, this isn't serving me, this
Mm-hmm.
is what I need. Or giving you that definition to lean in those situations where you feel vulnerable or you're feeling like I shouldn't take up this much space, to really lean into those spaces.
It's tricky because I know like 800 things to do. It's freaky though.
But
It's
it's like,
freaky because it goes against the kind of other tendencies I have, like to take up space. To yeah, that's the big one. So
what do you mean? Can you expand on that?
that well, I mean, for me, it's more like showing a little bit more of myself that maybe isn't so I'm not so proud of, and showing some limitations I might have, without getting too specific. Yeah, just showing some of the limitations I have that I think
Yeah.
I identify. I don't want to say my worth, but like my value, which I guess is the same thing as worth, just a different word completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like my value, and it's just uncomfortable and kind of scary because
Yeah.
there's a vulnerability of like, well, if I'm like, hey, my value is limited, there's a chance of like,
Mm,
hey, you're not as valuable.
right.
Yeah,
You're hitting the nail on the head there of that huge theme of just knowing like those vulnerable spaces, those places that feel so scary and untouchable, like I'm not valuable if I go there, are the places where you find the most intimacy. Like
yeah,
we feel shame around those things, but when we're able to share our shame with someone or like share that, it's that's what makes it go away, when we're able to connect in that space instead of avoid it
right.
and like push it away with some kind of numbing mechanism. So if you can reframe that, you going into those spaces that feel like I'm I'm going to lose my value if I do, that's where your biggest power is.
Right. Yeah. Just feels weird.
Yeah.
Feels
Well, it's
like
not normalized, right? Like it's not a
feels
normal thing.
uncomfortable. Feels like wearing a diaper.
We all want intimacy, we all want vulnerability, but then we block ourselves from it because it's like it's hard, it's painful, it's scary.
Yeah. So that's a reading, huh?
Yep.
Shit.
Yep.
What do you think people like? What obviously we just did a huge portion of it. Is there stuff you want to tell people? It's a terrible question, but it's a lot for me going through this right
Yeah,
now.
I know
It's
you're
heavy.
definitely processing through like
I mean, just yeah. What like, what did we learn? What did we learn today?
I think that the biggest what do I think?
Yeah,
The best let me think.
take your time.
Yeah, let's see. The best gift I think of astrology is just helping you understand how the different pieces of you interplay and seeing where you have immense gifts and talents and abilities, like all your water is beautiful, that you can help people, that you want to do healing work, that you want to do those, hold to be in that emotional realm, but also see how maybe that's sabotaging you,
Hmm.
right? And just help you understand these intricate parts of us, because we all think, I love what you named too, of like, those are the things that I don't feel valuable, or those are the things that I can't show anyone. We all feel that way. We all feel fucked up. We all feel like there's stuff about us that's like too much. So astrology really gives you that permission. Like that's what I'm here to do, is like help you decipher where you're getting stuck, what kind of tools can be implemented to um, allow you to be just your full expression, like however that is for you, because we're all so uniquely different and beautiful and deserve to be able to show up in that true authenticity. And that's not really normalized, right? It's like based on societal norms, we don't express ourselves to our full capacity.
Wild. Well, I need to go journal
Sure do.
for a long time. Yeah, thank you so much. So find Carrie on Instagram, mother double underscore star. That's mother underscore underscore star. Is there anywhere else they can find you, or anything else that you have to promote?
I have a website, motherstar.me. So that would be kind of under demolition of getting everything updated for a course that I'll be teaching at the beginning of the year about Saturn return. And just a big, we went over that a lot in the first interview.
Yeah.
What that means. Yeah, that's my newest. And then I do coaching work. So doing one-on-ones with clients.
Chart readings, coaching, classes. You do it all. Thank you so much. I'm like bewildered a little bit, so I'm going to go dunk my head in some cold water or something. And guys, just remember, if you want to learn more about this, check out Carrie's sites. And just also remember, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, no matter how long it's been going on or how intense it is, you're never, ever stuck. You might just need some support from somebody like Carrie. Lots of love. Good mental health.